The boy was no older than 11, standing nervously in the lobby of one of the city's most prestigious banks, clutching a worn leather envelope with trembling hands. He wore a simple hoodie, sneakers too big for his feet, and eyes too wide for someone his age. The manager's gaze narrowed. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice sharp, suspicious. He opened the envelope slowly, but she'd already tapped the silent alarm under her desk. "I think we have a situation," she muttered into her phone. But what she didn't know, what would leave her stunned, apologizing on her knees 15 minutes later, was that this boy's mother wasn't just anyone. She was her boss, the CEO, and she was on her way. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, share with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe for more real-life, inspired emotional stories. The sun beat down hard that Monday morning as Elijah James, an 11-year-old boy with skin the color of rich coffee and curls that never quite sat still, stood outside Bellevue National Bank in downtown Atlanta. He had taken 2 buses across town, changing once and waiting nearly 20 minutes in between, just to deliver something his mother told him was very important. He clutched a brown leather envelope close to his chest, its edges frayed and the clasp barely holding. His mother, Camille James, had told him, "You walk in, go straight to the receptionist, and give this to Ms. Cartwright. No one else. Okay, baby." Elijah nodded. His mother was strict and loving, CEO of a financial consulting firm, a genius with numbers, and the only mom who still tucked him in at night. He didn't know what was in the envelope, just that it had something to do with a very big meeting at the bank later that day. But when Elijah walked into the towering marble building with the golden Bellevue letters embossed across the entrance, he felt instantly out of place. Adults in tailored suits and high heels walked briskly past him, barely noticing. He approached the long desk, manned by a sharply dressed white woman with neat hair and a pearl necklace. "Excuse me," Elijah said softly. "I'm looking for Ms. Cartwright." The woman looked him over, frowning at his hoodie, at the scuffed sneakers, and the envelope in his small hands. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "No, ma'am. My mom told me." "I didn't ask what your mom told you," she interrupted. "You can't just walk into a bank, especially this bank, and expect to roam around freely." Elijah's hands began to tremble. "I'm not roaming. I was just told to give this." "Step back," she said suddenly. "Step away from the counter." People were now starting to look. A man in a gray suit gave Elijah a long stare. A security guard stepped out from behind a post. "I think we have a situation," the manager muttered as she discreetly pressed the panic button beneath the counter. "We have a suspicious minor attempting something at the front desk. No ID. No adult." The bank's front doors closed automatically. Elijah's eyes widened. I didn't do anything." The manager pulled out her phone and started dialing. "Yes, I need police at Bellevue. Now." Elijah's voice cracked. "Please don't call the police. I didn't do anything wrong. I said step back." Within minutes, a patrol car pulled up outside. 2 officers entered the bank, their eyes trained on the boy. "Elijah," one officer said cautiously. He froze. He couldn't run. His heart pounded as he held out the envelope. "This is all I came for. My mom said to give this to Ms. Cartwright." The other officer reached for the envelope just as the glass doors burst open again. A woman in a sharp navy blue suit and crimson heels stormed into the lobby. "Get your hands off my son." Camille James's voice boomed through the bank like thunder. The bank manager looked up, startled. Her face drained of color. Camille's presence was undeniable, tall, commanding, her eyes fierce and fiery. "Ms. James, You don't get to speak," Camille interrupted coldly. "Where's your regional manager?" I am the regional manager," the woman stammered. "Oh, so you're the one who thought it was appropriate to call the cops on an 11-year-old child holding a document envelope." Camille turned to the officers. "Thank you, officers. Please go. I'll be addressing this with the board." The officers glanced at each other and left quietly. The bank was silent. The envelope in Elijah's hands finally made its way to Ms. Cartwright, now shaking with embarrassment. Camille looked at the other customers and employees. "Let me make this very clear," she said. "I am Camille James, CEO of James and Holt Financial Group, the very firm you've been trying to partner with for 3 months. That envelope contained confidential analytics reports and final sign-off papers. My son came here at my request, and your staff made the choice, the racially biased, classist choice, to humiliate and criminalize a child based on how he looked." The bank manager's lip trembled. "I didn't know he was your son. That's the problem," Camille snapped. "You didn't care whose child he was. All you saw was a black boy with an envelope, and you assumed the worst." Camille put her hand gently on Elijah's back. "Come on, baby." As they walked out, Camille turned and said one last thing. "You may be a manager in this building, but I own this partnership, and I decide who we bank with." Later that afternoon, the boardroom at Bellevue Bank sat in silence. Camille stood at the head of the table, with her company's reports stacked neatly before her. The bank's regional director had flown in after hearing what happened. The same manager who'd called the police, Susan Whitmore, sat at the far end, pale and shaken. Camille didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I've heard your apology," she began, "but apologies without accountability are meaningless. Elijah could have been traumatized today, or worse. Do you know how often this happens to black children? They get mistaken for criminals when they're just being kids. All because of assumptions, stereotypes, fear." Susan kept her eyes down. This wasn't just poor judgment. This was systemic, cultural, built into how you view others. Camille looked at the board members. "I've spent years teaching Elijah to be strong, smart, and kind in a world that often sees his skin before his heart. And today, a simple errand turned into a lesson about how deeply prejudice still runs, even in places that preach professionalism." She paused and held up the envelope. "This envelope contains strategies that could increase your revenue by 18% over the next 2 quarters. But before I hand it over, I want 2 things." Everyone leaned forward. "1," Camille said firmly, "Susan must resign. Immediately. You need leaders who lead with wisdom, not fear." Susan gasped, eyes pleading. "2," Camille continued, "I want Bellevue to start a community outreach program. One designed to mentor underprivileged black youth interested in finance and business. My team will help structure it, but you will fund it and staff it." The room was stunned. After a tense silence, the regional director spoke. "We accept your terms." Susan quietly stood and walked out of the boardroom, her face blank with shame. Later that evening, Elijah sat at the kitchen table, finishing a PB&J sandwich, when Camille knelt beside him. "Hey," she said softly. "How are you holding up?" "I was scared, Mom," he whispered. "They didn't even let me speak." Camille wrapped her arms around him. "I know, baby. But you were brave. You stood your ground. And because of you, a lot of kids will now have doors open to them that were always shut before." Elijah smiled faintly. "Will I ever be treated like I belong?" he asked. Camille kissed his forehead. "One day, you'll walk into any room, and they'll know you don't just belong, you lead." This story isn't just about a child, a CEO, or a mistake. It's about the assumptions we carry and the consequences they create. Elijah was judged before he ever spoke a word. But in the end, it wasn't anger or revenge that changed the narrative. It was power with purpose. Every child deserves to feel safe. Every person deserves to be seen. And sometimes, the most powerful statement is simply showing up.